10. Yeah. So what's that now?
I'm saying about the safety review, there's a lot of things like processes that don't involve talking to operators that they can check, you know, and also about.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you would. Yeah, I know. There's technical information they would check.
Yeah, and also physical stuff.
Yeah, that would be checked.
Yeah, but I'm not saying.
Of course, I'm not a big fan of this big whole thing. I think it's a big to-do over bureaucracy because
well,
you had one isolated accident that has kicked off this whole thing.
Well, it may or may not be time for it, but yeah, I would say I think it's probably true that it was in response to that. You know?
Well, obviously, but it was a bureaucratic response to it. Right. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, maybe I'm saying maybe it was needed anyways. Maybe it's time for it. But anyways, they're saying as 20,000 jobs were lost last
in
whenever.
Portland area.
Probably
20,000. Jesus.
Probably in the region. I'm not. But their payroll taxes, I guess, are improving or stabilizing.
Oh, they're going up.
I'm not sure.
Did they have a financial report in this board meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll listen to that.
You know, they talked about the details of the budget because one of the things they adopted it today. You know, because July 1st is their new year, so they adopted the budget, and they talk about the debts being paid. You know, like I believe for the Green Line, yeah, because I think yes, because one of the debts besides the new buses that they purchased is the Green Line. Because the money from the federal government to pay for it comes late. It doesn't come. They're slow on it, so they take out debt for interim financing. They got a 0.3% return on their 1-year treasuries.
Ooh.
0.3%.
Yeah. I get more than that. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, yeah, because they want to have it unrestricted.
What was that? I got a Twitter from Michael from Portland Afoot saying they only got 1 week. They're supposed to have 3 months of reserve, but there's only one.
They discussed that, and Hakeem Olajuwon, which is the new guy, but he's a CFO from Providence, they talked about that. They were going to discuss it, but he's also saying that 3 months is the board policy, but that's really for when times are good. I was saying that it's kind of not too unexpected to when it's a recession, and just mentioned today that when there's a recession to have a soft landing. You know what I mean? To go down. Yeah. And they're also tight.
So that's the maximum.
Well, 3 months is what they like to have, but you know that's under ideal conditions. And I'm saying this is during a recession. Right. And also they're saying that they're going to look by line item, really go look and see what they need or something. But and also mention that Sue's, I guess she brought her campfire group.
Who? Sue Van Brocklin?
Yeah, or campfire group or something on the bus, and it broke down. This was her first. That was like her first. That was like her first.
Sue Van Brocklin, and it was the first time she.
I guess her first interaction with it, or whatever.
Wow! She brought her campfire girls on it, and it broke down. That's great. Okay, that's lovely.
And I didn't add up to 2 years, but they mentioned how it's a budget reduction after a budget reduction, and so it was like $50 million or something over 2 years. But they're saying it's largely due to the payroll taxes going down.
Yeah.
So it's
It's funny how they continue to hire these managers and.
Some of them are replacing,
Yeah, but they, there's this freeze on actually having people run the system for a long time now. But the managers and they're still coming in.
No. They're frozen too.
The other ones all left because they wanted to get the hell out of here, didn't they?
There is a hiring freeze in general in place.
Yeah, but how come there's so many? I keep seeing
because there's exceptions. You got to have some people are vital. Some people you really
like bus operators are vital. Everybody else isn't. Go ahead.
But not a specific bus operator. No, you could.
No, I guess we're interchangeable, but
exactly.
You could say the same thing about the executive directors, about the general manager.
No.
Yeah, I say yes. You say no.
I say that they perform specific tasks.
Yeah. Well, you're an apologist for the management anyway. Go ahead.
They perform specific, unique tasks. And actually, Fred says about people's 401ks are going to 101ks.
Oh, thank you, Fred. Yep, thanks. I already know I've lost half of it or something.
That's kind of it's
not funny.
And I want to go on the record here and say it's not it's not, a 401k is not $401,000. It's a section of the tax code.
Yeah, I think
there really is no 101k that they're bringing.
But I know what he means.
But it's a Fred. It's his saying, you know.
Yeah. Well, Fred always comes up with cute sayings.
Exactly.
I've always respected Fred's cute sayings.
Dareth Murray has said that too.
Yeah.
Dareth Murray, the webmaster.
And Fred, I always said Fred was very entertaining in his own way. He absolutely was. You know. And I will miss Fred because I enjoy watching his stuff, even though I don't particularly think he projected the right image, but he was interesting.
Well, he's also you know.
Yeah, he was not a good speaker.
Chad, you know, punk rocker, is also mentioned.
No, he was a horrible speaker, which is interesting.
Moving on, there's also a discussion of the pension funding being underfunded. You know, and I guess there is some testimony about that too, about how that they're projecting out like 20 years to fund it, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean...
Well, that's what happens when you keep expanding, adding staff, and it's all based on tax. Of course that's going to happen because you're expanded beyond the point of control. And that's what they did here. They created this situation themselves by this expansion that they've done without consideration of the impact of that. All based on tax dollars. And that's what will happen. I mean, if you keep growing a tax-based system, and that means you're going to need more taxes to fund it, and that's what they did. They kept growing it and growing it and growing it, and now they don't have the money to fund it.
Well, some of the growth was replacement, you know.
Well,
Max Lines.
How was this? You know, I'd like to do a study sometime of how many managers, supervisors, directors before Fred, how many operators before all of that. I'd like to do a study of all the personnel before Fred and all the personnel after Fred.
Okay, but I'm just saying about expanding as in operations, you know, a lot of the Max Lines replaced bus service.
Well, the Max Lines brought in their own, no, not enough. They brought on, they had to have their maintenance people, they had to have their supervisors. I mean, with each expansion, that brings their own level of bureaucracy.
Well, really, their issue is that they have their own right-of-way to take care of.
Well, that's right, but it adds levels of bureaucracy. Every time you expand, you add levels of bureaucracy. It's funded by taxes, which means you need more taxes. You can't just expand a tax-funded organization wildly without understanding the implications of that.
They have actually first of all, they have gotten increases in the payroll tax. So
they can't keep, see, that was the other fatal flaws. They kept expecting the payroll tax to go up forever, and that, obviously, that was like taking the futures contract and saying, gas is going to be $8 a gallon. You know, you cannot project.
They wanted to have that for the budget.
All right.
We've discussed
Jason's a management person.
We've discussed that before, and their real issue was stability, not price.
Well, stability is stupid if it's going to cost you millions. Anyway.
There's another side of it. But also they had a thing about they're getting their office supplies from Office Max.
Oh, that's lovely.
They had a resolution, but I guess the real thing was that that they're joining with the state so they can get lower prices. You know, they're a big entity as it is, but with the state, you know, they can negotiate lower prices. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Well, if they're getting a good deal, whatever.
They also had a thing about purchasing lift vehicles, and there is a debate which still isn't solved about whether they're going to get gas or diesel ones. You know, the issue is the new standard.
What, the little buses you mean?
Lift, yes.
What, they're going to replace those?
Yes.
Okay.
The issue is that there's new standards for diesel, and the technology hasn't been used in the USA, so they don't. And the long term, they don't know whether it's diesel or gas. No, there's fuel economy and other issues. Another thing about domestic streetcar propulsion, you know, for their new streetcar, they need a propulsion system, so they had a resolution for that, and various ones on construction for the Portland-Milwaukee light rail. And also a resolution about the 20th anniversary, American with Social
Disabilities Act.
Yeah. And I believe
the act that was meant to make equality among transit, which turned out being created a system of superiority rather than equality.
Why would you say that?
Because it requires all these special rules for people. You actually don't provide equality. You provide more than what you were providing for others.
Well,
there's more consideration.
Well,
the idea of the ADA was to make sure people were not denied what everybody else had access to. I remember this because
you can watch it because Michael Levine, who's a advocate for people with disabilities, discuss this. But actually, one argument you can make there is that the lift service, you know, that's restricted to people with disabilities. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I understand that that's necessary.
But I'm saying what I think the ADA is really useful for is like...
I've got nothing against the ADA other than the bureaucracy took over the ADA and turned it into this monstrous behemoth of rules and regulations and actually special provisions to create a different class of riders. It doesn't create the same class, it creates a different class.
Well, some of those provisions, help everybody. Like lifts on buses.
Yeah, sure, some of them do.